What are the characteristics, says this question, of a civilization? What are the characteristics of a civilization? And is how can India revert back to being a civilization? And is the West a civilization? Can we consider the West to be a civilization? While the West says that it's a civilizational entity, right? They talk about Western civilization. And I speak about India as a civilizational state. That we are not a nation state, we are a civilizational state. But am I being entirely honest when I say that? Let's question what I say. I keep saying, don't I, that India is different from the West. India is a civilization state, and the West is an empire, essentially. That's what I say. So first of all, so we have to approach this from first principles. What are the characteristics of a civilization? So clearly, if you think about it, if you think of all the great civilizations that have existed in the past, for example, you will know that a civilization is an advanced society, right? Clearly, a civilization cannot be a backward society or whatever. It has to be an advanced form of society. Now, what are the characteristics of this advanced form of society? First of all, I think this is pretty obvious. It should have a highly evolved indigenous culture, an indigenous culture that is institutionalized in the institutions of the society. So that's the first characteristic of a civilization, a highly evolved and institutionalized indigenous culture. Secondly, now any advanced society will have laws, it will have institutions, right? It may have a constitution, it may not have a constitution, but whatever laws exist in the society, whatever constitution exists, in case it does, whatever institutions exist, all of these laws, institutions, constitution, blah, 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 all of that has to be necessarily grounded or based in the indigenous culture and the indigenous values of this society. So that's the second requirement of a civilization. All laws, all institutions, this is constitution, whatever it is, has to be grounded, it has to be based in the indigenous culture, in the indigenous values of the civilization. Thirdly, you need to have an indigenous form of governance. You can't have a form of governance that is alien to the culture, right? Next, you need to have a highly organized society. Organized society means a stratified society. Division of labor, organized, institutionalized. If you look at the Wikipedia page, I suppose, of the word civilization, it will tell you it's going to have a highly stratified society, right? So you're going to have a highly organized society with division of labor and stratification of society into various classes, societal classes. Okay, we're going to have that. Next, you need to have a high degree of societal and political stability. The moment your political stability goes, your society starts becomes shaky, and the civilization can disintegrate. So you need a high degree of societal and political stability. Next, this is required. You need to have a single civilizational language. You may have lots of languages that people speak, but the civilization has to be grounded in one language. So the civilizational language has to be a single language. That has to be there. So for example, if you look at Greek civilization, which is small, you had Greek. You had various versions of Greek and other languages, but the main civilization language was Greek. In Chinese civilization, you have the Han Chinese language. Of course, in different parts of China, they speak other languages too. But Han Chinese is the civilization language. In India, it used to be Sanskrit. Of course, in India, you had all kinds of different languages that people spoke, but the civilizational language was always Sanskrit. Next, you need to have a large geographical area. Large geography. If it's a tiny little thing, it's not a civilization, right? Next, you need to have a powerful economy, a powerful military. You need to have high levels of prosperity. Without prosperity, there is no civilization. Understand that. If you are living hand to mouth, if there is abject poverty everywhere, that is not a civilization. You can never have high cultural values and all that in that sort of society, which is reduced to abject poverty. You need to have high levels of prosperity. Next, you need to have a large sphere of economic, military, and cultural influence that extends well beyond the borders of a civilization, which means that a civilization has to be a net exporter of culture. not a net importer of culture. A civilization must have its own scripts of writing. A civilization needs to have its own calendar, its own system of timekeeping. It cannot use the calendar that somebody else gave it. It must have its own calendrical system, its own system of timekeeping. So these are the characteristics of a civilization. So now I would like to ask you all, is 21st century India, today's India, is it really a civilization? Right? For example, does India have an institutionalized culture? Are India's laws grounded in our indigenous culture and in our indigenous values? Are our institutions grounded in our culture and our values? Is India's constitution grounded in India's culture and India's indigenous values? Does India have an indigenous system of governance? Does India have a single civilizational language today, an indigenous civilization language? Does India have high levels of prosperity today? Is India a net exporter of culture today? Does India have its own scripts today? Does India have its own indigenous calendrical system today? India today is not a civilization. India is a colonized culture today. So if I keep on saying, like I do, that India is a civilization state, I am actually stretching the truth. I am giving it some kind of space-time warping. Yeah, that's the truth. To be very honest, we are not a civilization today. Neither is China, by the way. China is not a civilization today. Neither it's an empire. It's trying to ape the US. China is trying to do whatever it takes to become the next US. The US is also an empire. India used to be a civilization until the middle of the 19th century. Today we are a colonized nation, even though the colonizers have left. That's the sad truth. But I'll keep saying that we are kind of still a civilization state. We can still revert to being a civilization state, but we'll have to change a lot of things. And the current system is such that it doesn't want to change things. Whoever is in power today, they have come to power because of the kind of system that we have today. Do you think they will want to change the system? They will not want to change the system. They will want to keep the system the way it is. They will want to keep this nation colonized. And that's the big problem. So where does the change come from is the big question. The way things are, nothing will change as of now. Right, okay. Very pleasant thoughts, isn't it?